Welcome, aspiring UPSC candidates. Today we continue our journey through the Indian Constitution, focusing on Article 2. Article 2 deals with the admission or establishment of new states in the Indian Union. Understanding Article 2 is crucial for the UPSC examination. Let's dive into the detailed study of Article 2. First one, admission or establishment of new states. Article 2 empowers the Parliament to admit new states to the Union of India, or Article 2 empowers the Parliament to establish new states within the territory of India, that is, to admit new states or establish new states within the territory of India. This provision allows for the expansion and reorganization of the Indian states to meet the evolving needs of governance, administrative efficiency, regional aspirations, and etc. Remember, there's two things, maybe the same thing that we can say in two ways. That is, Article 2 empowers the Parliament to admit new states to the Union of India or establish new state within the territory of India. Next is the procedure for admission or establishing. The first thing is we saw about the admission and establishing, and next we are going to see how the procedure works. The process for the admission or establishment of new states under Article 2 involves several steps. The first step is the president initiate the proposal. The president initiates the proposal. The president, upon receiving a proposal for the admission or establishment of a new state, refers it to the parliament for the consideration. Who initiate the proposal? The president initiate the proposal upon receiving a proposal for the admission or establishment of a new state, refers it to the parliament. So the president refers it to the parliament for the consideration. Then the second step, parliament's role. In the first step itself, we saw that means the first point, the Article 2 empowers whom? The Parliament. Here in the second step, we are going to see what is the role of the Parliament. The Parliament, through a legislation, determines the terms and conditions for the admission or establishment of a new state. Through a legislation, Parliament will initiate a legislation, that means a law or an act. So this will determine the terms and conditions for the admission or establishment of a new state. Then the parliament, there will be an initiation of a bill, then it will be passed by the parliament, and again it will get the consent of the president, then it will become an act or a law. This is what the role of parliament. And the third step is the president assess. That was I said earlier. Once the parliament passes this legislation or the bill, the president grants his assent and the new state becomes a part of the Indian Union. So remember, there are three steps. The very first step is the president initiate the proposal and he refers it to the parliament, and the parliament will through a legislation or a law, or an act, they will determine the terms and condition for the admission or establishment of the new state. Then the third step and the last step is the president. The president will give his assent to the legislation passed by the parliament. Then comes the third provision of Article 2, that is alteration of areas, boundaries or names. Article 2 also grants the parliament the authority to alter the areas, boundaries or names of existing states. This provision allows for the reorganization of states to address issues such as administrative convenience, linguistic, cultural factors, and equitable distribution of resources, etc. So, through Article 2, Parliament can alter the area of any state, alter the boundaries of any state, or they can even change the names of any state. And the fourth provision of Article 2 is consent of affected states. In case where the alteration of areas, boundaries or names affects the territory of existing states. That means in the third provision we saw that the parliament can alter the areas, boundaries or the names, right? So in the fourth provision it says that in case if such an alteration is happening in the area, boundary or name of any state, Article 2 stipulates that the Parliament must obtain the consent of the concerned state legislature. In case we are changing an area or name boundary of any state or states, we have to obtain their consent. The concerned state legislature should have to give their consent to changing this to alter this name, the name boundary or area, etc. This ensures the protection of the interest and aspiration of existing states. This is what happening in a process of altering the name boundaries or area. So this ensures the protection of the interest and aspiration of the existing state. If for example, if there is a statement like this, Article 2, the question may be like in your prelims, there will be a statement regarding Article 2. Article 2 ensure the protection of interest and aspiration of states. Yes, then this is a correct answer. You have to choose that as a correct answer, because Article 2, in case of altering the areas, boundaries or name, it stipulates that the Parliament must obtain the consent of the concerned state legislature, and this ensure the protection and interest of aspiration of existing states. And the fifth provision of Article 2 is judicial review. It is important to note that the exercise of power under Article 2 is subject to judicial review by the Supreme Court. So, if anything is happening under Article 2, it's not free from judicial review. It is subject to judicial review by the Supreme Court. The court can examine the constitutional validity of any action taken by the Parliament in relation to the admission or establishment of new states and alteration of areas, boundaries or name. So remember that the Article 2 is subject to judicial review by the Supreme Court. So in the same question as I mentioned above, if there is a statement stating that Article 2 is apart from judicial review, that is a wrong statement, because Article 2 is subject to judicial review by the Supreme Court. In conclusion, Article 2 of Indian Constitution empowers the Parliament to admit or establish new state within the Indian Union and alter areas, boundaries or names of existing states. The process involves proposal by the President, Parliament's legislation and the President's assent. Consent from the affected states and judicial review ensure a fair and constitutional exercise of the power. Continue a diligent study of Article 2 as it forms a significant portion of your UPSC syllabus. Best of luck with your preparation and wish you success in your UPSC examination. Let's meet in the next video. Bye.